Hi everyone, welcome back to the Ball Girls. So this week we're joined by Dan Marrazza, formerly of the Vegas Golden Knights and DraftKings as well. So thank you so much, Dan, for joining us.
Absolutely, Haley. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
So I'm going to start off the questions. So being one of the original employees for the Vegas Golden Knights, a lot of people loved how the team presented themselves on social media. How did you come up with all of those ideas? Like I know the hangover when you were talking to, was it Brands? Who was it again?
That actually was Brandstrom. I'm really impressed. We actually did the thing. So it was at the draft. We did that, and actually, right, the draft was in Chicago that year. And before we left, we actually went on the roof of Caesar's Palace and we filmed something with Derek England, Braden McNabb, Jason Garrison, and Marc-Andre Fleury. Marc-Andre Fleury had the satchel. And I remember going up there. It was June. It must have been 125 degrees on the top of Caesar's Palace. And I had a suit on with my luggage getting ready to leave Chicago right from there. So we had a couple of hangover experiences going with that team.
Amazing. So yeah, but how do you come up with all of those ideas while you were with the team?
Yeah. So it's a really good question. When I got there, obviously the team started playing in June of 2017, but October of 2017, they got the franchise. They got the players in June of 2017. I got there in June of 2016. So that was an extra. I think it was. I got there on Sunday night, June 19th, right as the Cleveland Cavaliers won the NBA championship. Like that was when my plane landed, and 3 days later was when the NHL gave them the franchise. So at that point, we only had 7 or 8 employees. Our office was about 12 by 12 in an IKEA, next to an IKEA in an industrial yard. Our actual offices hadn't even been built yet at this point, and I was the only person who wasn't ticket sales. Our logo said Vegas is hockey because we didn't have a team name. We had no general manager, players, anything. So from that aspect is hindsight, kind of like looking back, it seems like that we developed the voice very quickly, but I would say it was not as quickly maybe internally, because I guess sometimes when you're in it, you feel like you go through some of the slow days. In our cases, we weren't really able to develop much of a voice for the first couple months because the people that were needed to approve brand direction were not even employed by the team yet. So that's like a tricky aspect of it. It's hard to have a meeting when the person doesn't exist yet. I think the thing that really started to change things for us is I think it was in September, about 3 months later, we hired a guy. His name is Nami Abuzaid, and he was the chief marketing officer of the team. He stayed about a year, and I worked very closely under him. And he was a guy who came from the Win in Vegas, so he was a non-traditional hockey professional sports marketing person, but a really bright guy and really understood the Vegas market. And one of the things that he really wanted to emphasize, not only for social, but also for in-game presentation, which, as you probably remember, the medieval times on ice type shows, which, funny enough, the guy who did them just got hired by Seattle. I just saw on Instagram. He just arrived there about yesterday, I think. So with us, it was the idea of Vegasizing things. That was the expression that we like to use, where we wanted a voice that was going to mirror what the city was, where some people sometimes say, well, you guys did wouldn't work in Winnipeg or wouldn't work in St. Louis. But the thing is, Las Vegas, Winnipeg, and St. Louis are completely different cities. In our case, we wanted to approach it as that everything that maybe the outside maybe looks at Vegas, maybe with skepticism of why pro sports wouldn't work there, we want to charge towards those things, and we want to be those things, and we want to be fun. I think one of the things that is pretty interesting, especially as we look now, and the Golden Knights are I think the number 2 favorites to win the Stanley Cup this year, is the one thing that we were not necessarily counting on was the team's going to be so good off the hop. Like, this is not expected. This was not the plan. I wish it was, but it wasn't the plan. Is that at the time we said, okay, traditionally expansion teams take 2, 3, 4, 5 years, sometimes even more to get good. At the very least, we're going to be entertaining. We're going to do something that even if people in the desert don't know about hockey, some of them do, some of them don't, we want to have that entertainment factor that even if the team isn't much to write home about now, they're going to have such a good time with it that they are going to enjoy it. And by like process of elimination, let's get into hockey more at the same time. That was how we came up with the strategy. When it came to individual ideas, I think it came down to different people that we had in the organization. And I think that one of the things that sometimes people maybe on the outside, they maybe know 1 or 2 people that work for the team or associated as a social person, but it really takes a village. And in our case, it was taking that edict that came from our chief marketing officer and trying to disseminate that, whether like I said, whether that was within game or through social. But the idea of how that voice came to be, I would say that it was definitely that. It was definitely something that some of the comments we used to get were pretty funny. I remember one of them was like, "Who runs this account? Don Rickles?" And I was like, "Can you like do a LinkedIn recommendation? Like, can you like write that one up for me?" Is like kind of like that one, but no, it was really a collective effort, and it was something that when getting that the chief marketing officer, he's someone who then had the relationships with hockey ops, with ownership. So it's not just. I think sometimes people see other teams and they say, "Why does this team not do this per se?" But it really is something that's reflective of an organization's values and doing it from the top down, and that's something that we definitely did, and that's kind of how that kind of came. And like I said, from my aspect, I was kind of ground zero there for a while. Where the first 12 months, I was the only digital employee up until about a month before the expansion draft. So it really was in a lot of that, really, on the day-to-day basis, is that sometimes people have asked me like, how'd you pick Vegas? And I was like, Vegas picked me. Vegas picked me, and it was, really fun chapter.
That's awesome. First off, can confirm that Vegas in June is disgusting. I was there the year that 2017, the night of the NHL Awards. I wasn't there. I was at a Backstreet Boys concert, but I was there. And I remember landing at the airport, and it was 119 degrees, and I wanted to die.
Good. That same night, it was actually my cell phone melted. We were at the event where all the jerseys were unveiled that Adidas had done.
Yeah.
It was the first time the Golden Knight jersey overall was being shown. I think this was the night before the expansion draft. And I was with the guy who was including with us at the time as we were walking out, and he's doing a great job. He actually lives in Nashville and MLS now and social, and he's my boss in a few years probably. Is that I remember walking out and the sides of my cell phone were drooping in. It was and I was like, it's 7:00 at night. This is the easiest 2-week stretch ever. And the expansion draft is tomorrow. So he and I started driving back from the strip to the team offices about 20 minutes off the strip. And we pulled into a really rough neighborhood as we both didn't really know the area that well. It was the closest Verizon store. And we got loaded up on the phone. And I think we got back to the office about maybe 8:30, and we were getting ready to go home. And right before we went home, we got kind of pulled aside. It was the list of the team's expansion draft picks the day before anybody knew them. And we had to get some content ready. And I think we left about 3:30 in the morning because we legitimately didn't know it was coming, but it was every pick coming for the next night. So Vegas, cell phone melting, something like that. So I always like to say that was the first, that cell phone went right into the new cell phone got thrown right into the fire. Its first day in service was the expansion draft.
That's so funny. Well, kind of speaking on the social terms, I've seen a lot recently because, people, they kind of show who they are on these brand accounts, but a lot of people say they don't want to know who the person's running the account. So say I'm running the Toronto Maple Leafs account, people don't want to actually know that I'm the person putting in all this work. Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
So I would say my feelings on that have probably evolved a little bit over the years. I think one of the things that I kind of mentioned a minute ago was that it really takes a village to put these things together. I think sometimes when one person or two people sometimes get very visible in that, I think it sometimes takes credit away from that village that really is playing a big part in that. I think one of the things for me is I'm not the type of person that is looking at it that this needs to be like the Wizard of Oz, like this is the person that stays hidden behind the curtain and nobody knows who they are. That being said, I don't necessarily think there should be a concerted effort to try to get the person out there on the extreme level, because I think what happens then is that for a lot of fans, the line between the individual person and the actual brand, I think sometimes it can get blurry. I know in the case of the Golden Knights, I was someone who was very visible, and I think there were definitely some positives to that and probably some drawbacks as well. I think in our case, I don't necessarily think it was the plan thing. Hey, let's be the face of things. But I think it was more the thing that when the franchise got there was so much enthusiasm for the team. And it's something that maybe people from Las Vegas don't really understand, is that if you've grown up in Vegas, you've never had something of your own before that. It's always everybody else's thing coming into your city. And I remember when I moved into my house there, I had nothing in the house at all. And the cable guy came in and he asked me what I was doing there. And I said it, I was looking for the hockey team. And he was like, I've never seen a hockey game, but I'm so excited I'm going to buy season tickets because I love my hometown. And that was kind of the attitude. So the thing was, though, when you have no players, what do you cover as the media for the first year? There's nothing to cover. So in our case, with the franchise as a whole, whether it was myself, whether it was game presentation and some other folks on the business side, is that a lot of those business storylines started to get covered. Where what is the franchise doing to build this? What is the franchise doing to build that? The fans were so anxious to embrace everything with the team that I think some of the team employees were almost treated by the fans as like the way that most fans only treat players, where like these are the figures in town. So I think from that aspect, it was kind of almost not intentional, but it ended up, I think, maybe making me very public, where some people definitely probably associated me with the brand, which was sometimes difficult when it's I'm part of the brand, but it's several people. I think the way I look at it is, instead of it being a team saying, bam, 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 here's Haley, or here's Dan, or here's Jordan, and here's they or the brand, is more that it's like, if it's podcast, if it's like industry type things, I think those are fine. I think more when it gets into putting things that are less for industry eyes and more towards fans' eyes and doing it that way, I think that's kind of where I kind of maybe, I don't know if draw the line is the right word, that's kind of the caution. And I think, like I said, it really goes back to is think of it this way: is say Haley is working on the team's social account, and Jordan is the one that everybody associates public with this. And anytime there's something awesome, people go, "Yeah, I love Jordan's work. That's awesome." And Haley would almost be like, what the hell? Like, what about me? And I think sometimes that can kind of happen when and I've seen that with some other places as well, where when you don't do it that way, I think really driving that, and I think from the top down, I think it's something that's really for the leadership to really establish that this is not about Haley's successes or Jordan's successes or Dan's successes. These are Rep Group successes. I think as long as that's the guiding light, so to speak, I think we'll be okay.
For sure.
So, what are your personal favorite teams within the NHL, or even just MLB, NFL, any teams ever that are great in social media, and kind of like what social marketing efforts do they take that you find are innovative?
I've joked that I should start charging people to plug their work when asked this question, but no, I would say a couple, and I'll do one for like each sport. In baseball, I've always loved the Colorado Rockies. I think one of the things that's really impressive about them is that baseball is a very day in and day out sport where in every year except 2020, there was 162 games, and it could be very repetitive. And the Colorado Rockies find a way to live tweet games and do it in ways that are completely different on a regular basis. And doing that in a sport that's so every day is really impressive. I remember, this is probably a year or two old, but one of them they did was, if you've ever been in the like Getty Images or any of the photos, and you read like the official descriptions of the photos, where it's like this formalized language, it would be like, the Toronto Maple Leafs defeated the Montreal Canadiens in an NHL game in Montreal, Quebec, Canada on Tuesday, and it's all this like drawn out language. They tweeted an entire game as if it was captions and Getty Images. It was amazing. And they do so many things like that, where I myself am not a Colorado Rockies fan. I'm New Jersey originally, but at the same time, I love following their stuff because they are really creative with how they do it, and they do it in a way that's funny, but it's also very light. It's very non-confrontational. I mean, even last night, I think they lost 23-5 last night, and a lot of teams would stop posting doing that. And they did it in a way where they weren't like making fun of it per se, but there was just a lot of honest and direct from this, and just kind of building that relationship. Where the way I kind of say it is, it's not about a game for the season. It's about like a journey through, like, if you were a fan of the Rockies when you were 5, and then you were 35, and there's still a team, actually, everybody for 30 years yet, but you know what I mean, is that it's the same kind of idea, is that it's something that transcends individual seasons, and it's building that journey. I think they do a really good job with that. In the NBA, one of my favorites is the Sacramento Kings. I think one of the reasons I really like them, especially on Instagram, is I would be lying if I said I watched a Sacramento Kings game probably in the last week or two. But that being said, is kind of back what I was saying, how a lot of teams, when they don't win, they really kind of hide from it. The Sacramento Kings stuff is almost more entertaining when they don't win. That they do use memes in a way that is like, I'm not using somebody just going to Giphy and just plucking the same GIF from The Office and putting it in without like updating it in any way. Like, well, what does that have to do with the Sacramento Kings? but they'll take things like that and they'll customize them. Like one of them I remember, I think it was right around Christmas last year, they had been on a losing streak and they won a game, and they took the scene from Home Alone 2 when Kevin walks out of the hotel and gets a cheese pizza, and they edited it so when the pizza box got open, it was just a W sitting in the pizza box. And there's so many like modifications like that they do, and so them as a team that maybe I would not be compelled to follow as much, but I follow those social and follow them because of that. I think they have a lot of buy-in from the organization to be able to act that way when they don't win. I think also, that being said, I don't know if that would work in every market. I don't know if Philadelphia or the New York team could get away, or the Leafs could get away with being cutesy when they blow a game. I don't know how well that would go, but the Sacramento Kings, it works for them, and I really like it a lot. In hockey, I think I'm probably not unique in saying this one, but I think Carolina Hurricanes have really done a great job over the last 2 years. They hired somebody who I'm going to plug him a little bit. His name is Dan Lacaracca, and he's developed a really strong staff there. And that maybe it's the Dan thing that we got. And we're both in New Jersey, too. I guess that's the bond. Is that he had previously been with both the Brooklyn Nets and Carolina Panthers, and as somebody who's been in team sports but had maybe not been in the NHL specifically, and so brought in some new ideas, and they brought in a new social manager that was under him, and I know the VP marketing is really involved, and they have a huge buy-in. And the thing that impresses me most about them is how nimble they are. And what I mean by nimble is the perfect example is the one, I guess it was a year ago now, the whole Don Cherry Bunch of Jokes thing, that within 12 hours they were selling t-shirts that was Bunch of Jokes. Some people from the outside might not see how hard that is. It was also on a weekend too. Don Cherry did this on a Saturday night, and by Sunday they were selling these shirts, where you have to get buy-in on that. You have to not only know how to get the shirts done and get it out, but just to get the approvals from people on weekends, which in some cases you might not be able to do. And in the Hurricanes case, they've empowered people to make decisions, and I think that's allowed them. And the same thing even this year with David Ayers, that the way I say is when they've had an opportunity, they haven't missed. And they haven't missed. And I think that's something that's really benefited them. So definitely love the Hurricanes. Also love, obviously, Gritty. I mean, come on, that's not that original. I like to joke sometimes that Gritty might be more known in the United States than most of the players in the league, which is actually kind of good or bad, I guess, depending on how you look at it. I think the reason Gritty has been good is because it's almost 2 years old now. I said it because I don't know what Gritty exactly is. Gritty's 2 years old now, and they still develop original content. This isn't something that's gotten old. It's not something that's gotten stale. And I don't think they necessarily planned Gritty to be this breakout star that it became. But once they realized that this was there, they put a lot of resources into that, way more than maybe some other teams do with mascots. I would say those four would be ones that are favorites. I mean, there's many more that have different elements. I like in the NHL, I think the Penguins do a really good job. Well, it's not necessarily one thing that really sticks out. Just kind of nuts and bolts, fundamentally strong. I think they're really good. I mean, the Chicago Cubs and the Cleveland Indians are really good in baseball. There's a lot, but I'll single out those couple at the top. I hope everybody else doesn't hate me.
Awesome. So kind of switching into your more recent work of DraftKings, a lot of people say that esports and sports gambling are kind of the future of sports. Obviously, you having worked in that, do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's funny. The expression that I heard at DraftKings, and I really like it, and I use it now, is that it's almost like this industry is Budweiser and Prohibition in it yesterday. And I really like that one. Whereas, which I guess I'm glad to have the company stop too. If Budweiser did after Prohibition but the same way is, I think it's something that think of it this way. Think of how many people watch football because of their fantasy football teams. My pun is think of how many people in offices only watch college basketball when it's March Madness because they have their office bracket. A ton. Super Bowl office pools. There's so many things like that. I think what that really shows is how much interest having skin in the game can really have for people, and having that rooting interest. Well, it's one thing to be a super fan of a team that really cares about if a team wins or loses. But if you're a more casual fan and, you kind of like it, but, you maybe don't have the same rooting interest, you watch because it's something to do, this gives you that element. I think it really drives a lot of interest. I think it's something that from a financial aspect, at least, I'm sitting in New Jersey right now, is you can, and this is what's the first state to legalize mobile sports betting to do it on phones and not just in sports books and casinos, is that you can't go 5 seconds without seeing an ad for either DraftKings or Vander or William Hill or some of the other ones. Even on team broadcasts now you might not even see them where you guys are, but in a lot of NHL broadcasts, they'll have like the digital ad on the glass behind the net. That'll be something that will be related to that already. So I think it definitely is something. I would say esports and sports gambling have some similarities and some differences. I think with sports betting, I think this is the thing, especially if you even look at people who put their money in today. Michael Jordan was actually named the advisor at DraftKings today, and I'm trying to think some other ones you've seen the Ted Leonsis, you've seen the Jerry Joneses, the Robert Krafts. I mean, these are smart guys that I want to be on their side of history when it comes to business, and these are guys that have really put their money where their mouth is and really kind of got involved in this as well. I think when you see that, and it's kind of understanding that there's so much potential, and it's not just saying, hey, Jordan, Haley, and Dan are going to have cell phones and they're going to bet on hockey games or something like that. But it's even to the point that I think one of the things in the future is that a lot of arenas and stadiums are going to build sports books in their venues. So say you're the Leafs and you have this, instead of just having hockey games and basketball games in the winter, you now have 365-day foot traffic with a lot of people. So on game day, you got 20,000 sports fans coming in that are right there. But you have you have a reason for people to go there all year round. I think that is part of the future. I think the thing that's going to be really interesting for the industry as a whole is how it markets itself. I think a lot of people who maybe don't have background in gaming or have never really placed a bet before think of it as maybe this seedy type of underworld type thing where, the bookie's in the back of his deli, taking his whatever he's taking in, is that, but to kind of make it something that is not necessarily intimidating that way, that it's not that you have to bet $1,000 or $10,000 or these really, big amounts, is that you could have fun doing it in a way that's less than that, a little bit more responsible. I mean, especially in the days of COVID, where people are losing jobs, and we have to acknowledge that, is people might not have the money to be doing a lot of that to that same degree. But I think if the industry is able to successfully position itself as something that's safe and that can be done healthy, I think it's something that I could even see in the future, that I could see the Googles and the Amazons getting involved in this. I could easily see it that you're going to be able to bet on games where you're on your Amazon Prime account. You can just bet on a game from that. Or you have your TV controls, and instead of switching it to Rogers Sportsnet, it'll have, do you want to place a bet on this game? And you'll be able to click it on your controls. I really think that's the way a lot of things are going. So it's going to be, the thing is, I think in 2020's decade, I think that's going to be the big thing of this decade, that when 10 years when people look back, and, still a lot of places still need to pass legislation on it, but a lot of that is moving, at least as far as I know, is that I think this is going to be the thing that really kind of changed the game, almost the way that television once upon a time changed the game, and radio changed the game, and the internet changed the game. I think this is this decade thing.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see what goes on with it. But yeah, before DraftKings, you've always worked in hockey, even Olympic level. Have you found that covering it in any way has kind of taken away, like, being a fan? Like, I know when I worked for the Jays, like in the Jays shop, like many years ago, I would dread if there was extra time. And I would, like, even if the Jays are doing good or doing bad, I'd be like, yay, like, let's go home. So, like, awful attitude. But
Yeah, no, totally. I think one of the things, and it's funny you mentioned the Jays, is the Jays inadvertently are how I got into hockey. You might say, how the hell did that happen?
whoa.
This one's gonna blow your mind. So my aunt was a travel agent for CBS in the early 90s, and before Fox had the rights for the postseason, CBS had them. So that included 92 and 93 when the Jays won the World Series. So in 93, I was 6, and my aunt had gotten my dad and I World Series tickets if we could go to Toronto. So we went to Game 6 when Joe Carter hit the home run and the Jays won the World Series. So that was actually my first time in Canada, believe it or not. So anyway, is when we were up there, that the Leafs were also really good at that time. And that was the Pat Boone's coaching the Leafs, and Doug Gilmour and Dave Andreychuk and those guys. And they had gotten off to a 6 start in that 93-94 year. The year before was when they lost to the Kings with Gretzky in the conference finals. And then that year they went to the conference finals against the Canucks. But I think they started out like 6-0 or something like that, whatever, some like crazy amount. And that night, October 23rd, the night the Jays won the series, the Maple Leafs beat the Lightning. And they put it on the video screen, and the place went just as crazy for that as they did for the Jays that night. And so my family, like my parents didn't have a background in hockey at all. I grew up 10 miles outside of New York. I grew up, I would say maybe a 10-minute drive from the Meadowlands with the Devils played. But my parents didn't necessarily dislike hockey. They just didn't really know it. Like a lot of Americans really didn't know it. So my dad kind of had it in his mind that he wanted to expose me to like every sport at some point in time. So next Tuesday, 3 days later after the World Series, I went to my first NHL game. It was coincidentally the first ever time Modi Brodeur faced Patrick Roy. It was Brodeur's rookie season. It was actually his first loss too for Brodeur. And Patrick Roy pitched a shutout. I knew so little about hockey is that it took me probably half the game to understand the team in red was not the Devils. I think I just didn't get it at that time. That was how I kind of got into hockey that way. And I think for me, then I started to play hockey also. And that's how I eventually, so like I'm 33 now. I got started as an intern when I was 16. And I think it was a thing that growing up, I guess there's a couple ways you could say. You could say, oh, this is my dream and I loved it. But it was also the only thing I was kind of good at and like was telling stories about hockey that way. So for me, you have to have an American go to a baseball game in Canada to get into hockey in the United States was kind of the way that it kind of went. But I think as a fan, is that I grew up as a Devils fan in New Jersey. And then when I was more in high school and college, I liked the Islanders a little bit more just because they had traded for Michael Patrick, was one of my favorite players. I just like a little guy to lay people out back in the day. You can do that. But the thing is, for me, sometimes people ask me, even at DraftKings, people ask me, is like, who do you root for? And I'm like, I don't know how to answer the question because for me, I root for players that I like and people that have been good to me in my career is more so than a team that I have a fandom of. Like, yeah, I grew up as a Devils fan. If you show me clips of the 95 Stanley Cup, I'm like, yeah, I'm a Devils fan. But the thing is, I haven't been a Devils fan in a long time now. So for me, I think it doesn't necessarily change the way how much you like the sport. I think it changes the way you watch the sport.
Yeah. For
sure. Just because it's like, how can I root for the Devils if I'm looking for the Lightning or if I'm looking for the Golden Knights? Like, we're playing them. So it's even like, which actually I'll use that as a segue. You might ask, why am I wearing a Norfolk Admirals hat with a logo that they don't even use anymore? And this goes into, I guess, the playoffs this year. One of the people who I really like to see do well is John Cooper, the coach of Lightning. And one of the reasons is it goes into that aspect of who's been good to you at different times. So for me, is when I started as an intern, I took a long time to break into the industry on a full-time basis. I probably have the record for the most unpaid days in the history of the industry. I've lived in 7 states. I've done what I've had to do, so to speak. So in 2011, 2012, I was like a intern grad assistant with the Lightning. And that year, the Lightning, John Cooper wasn't the coach yet. He was the Norfolk coach. And it was Guy Boucher was the Lightning coach. And the Lightning that year, they had gone to the conference finals against Boston the year before, but they just didn't, things just didn't click that year. It was Stamkos scored 60, but the team did not make the playoffs. And it was one of those years that by January, you kind of gave it a chance that they were going to make the playoffs for slim. So in my case, I'm like, oh man, it's going to be year 8 of not working full time and being in this industry. What can I do to kind of like make a little more of an impact? So at the time, the Norfolk Admirals were, they were decent. I think they were like 5th in the conference. It was like February. So what I had suggested to the Lightning was that rather than me staying until June when I was originally supposed to stay until, how about I leave in April? Well, the Lightning will be in the playoffs anyway, and Norfolk, maybe it'll go a round or two, and I volunteered that you don't have to pay me for any of it, but I will drive and I will cover wherever the Norfolk Admirals go for the playoffs. I will drive and I will cover the team as a beat reporter for TampaBayLightning.com. I did this with the idea that, okay, my family lives in northern New Jersey, and most of the AHL at that time was, Syracuse and Binghamton and Albany and places that, the 3.5 hours, 4 hours, but not prohibitive. So when the Lightning approved this, the Admirals stopped losing games. They won the next 28 games. Great. It was the longest winning streak in the history of pro hockey at any level, at least on this side of the ocean. And if you look at the team, I guess it makes sense. John Cooper was the coach, and Tyler Johnson, and Andre Palat, and Alex Killorn, and Radko Gudas, and Richard Panik, and a lot of guys that, have made the Lightning the powerful team that they now are. And then in the playoffs, they only lost 3 games. They went 15-3, and they won the cup. However, at the beginning of that, I took this on knowing that there were two doomsday scenarios. One was they had to play the Abbotsford Heat in the Calder Cup Finals, because Abbotsford's in British Columbia, and there's no way I'm going to be able to drive to British Columbia when I don't have any money. And the second one was that they would play the St. John's Ice Caps at some point in the Eastern Conference playoffs, because I cannot drive to Newfoundland. My car doesn't flow. I can't do it. So, of course, we played the St. John's Ice Caps in the Eastern Conference Finals. Of course, because that's how things have to go. It was so frustrating. It was Game 7. They were against Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and Wilkes-Barre was 90 minutes from where my parents lived. I was like, it could have been that, but no, St. John's had to win. I was the only person on the hockey side with the Admirals that really knew kind of what my situation was, that the second the season was over, I wasn't going to have a job anymore, that I'm doing this where I'm kind of really going around. And he used to joke sometimes. One of my nicknames, it was T-Rex, because I didn't eat vegetables, I only eat meat. And I think that was the pull into him, just trying to use his media meals and eat up, is that, you know, sometimes some like him and the goalie coach would joke like, T-Rex, how do you drive with the little arms and all stuff like that, and it was pretty funny. So going into the conference finals against St. John's, it was 2 games in Northbrook, 3 in St. John's, and then 2 would have been 2 back in Northbrook, even though it ended up being a sweep where they outscored like 20-5 or something like that. Is that John Kugler had asked me before the game once, like, what are you going to do? Like, you driving to St. John's? And I said, like, I don't know yet. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I was really stumped. So John Kugler's suggestion was, how about this? Lose my cell phone number. Don't tell anybody you're not there. After the game, wait 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and call me. I can only give you 2 or 3 minutes. Take what you need. Don't tell anybody you're not there. Continue your coverage, and then we'll, and just do it that way. And he was up to his word on it. I mean, it was one of the games was an overtime game. From my parents' basement, I called John Kugler 30 seconds after the overtime game. And the same way, the next day, they clinched the Eastern Conference in St. John's and did that too. And then they, luckily, the hockey gods were a little kinder. We got Toronto in the finals as opposed to Oklahoma City, which was the alternative. Toronto was a lot closer than Oklahoma City. Is that and the Admirals swept the Marlies in the finals that year. And my last day with the Lightning, and John Cooper actually allowed it that I could actually lift the Calder Cup on the ice at Ricoh Coliseum. So as kind of a thing that it's funny, since then, I think I've only talked to him twice in the last 8 years. One of them was on the draft floor in 2013. That was a couple months after he got the Lightning job. And then in Vegas, when they went out there, we caught up in the tunnel, before the game. It's not like I knew the guy that well, but it kind of shows a little bit kind of what he's about. They always use the expression, like, treat the president of the company the same way as the janitor or the intern or whatever the case may be. And in that case, that was John Cooper, and that is his personality. And I think it's something that of how he's lasted with the Lightning as long as he has, is that he's developed an atmosphere there. Well, even yesterday, he was doing his media availability with an Aerosmith shirt on. Like, you can't picture a lot of coaches doing that, And it just kind of develops that thing that I don't know if he genuinely cares or not, but he sure as hell comes off like he genuinely cares. And I'm like, man, if he's willing to do that when he's trying to get into the NHL himself and in big games for himself, and that allowed me to complete that project, which was really central for me eventually getting hired by NBC to cover the Olympics and really launch my career. I'm like, that says a lot about that guy. And in this case, he's been there now 7, 8 years now. The pressure on that team is a lot, and I'd love to see them do well. So I'm wearing that Norfolk Admirals hat today on the long soliloquy. What do they say? Is like, if you take care of the people, they want to take care of you too, however it works. So that explains, I guess that's also a little bit of a different when you talk about being a fan. You're way more of a fan when it's the first round of the playoffs, and if your team gets knocked out, you don't have a job.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well,
that's a pressure-packed scenario, right? It was like, oh, they advance, fist pump under the table. I have a job for 2 more leagues, and keep going that way. So that's a different way to watch the game, I would say. Maybe a little. That might even be tougher than gambling on a game.
That's true. We've got one last question for you. Left room that they cut you off after 40 minutes, so it'll be super quick. But obviously, you've done so much in your career. Like with NBC, you literally won a sports Emmy. That's insane. But you've also had so many positions. Do you find, as a young reporter, to push out as much content as possible, like, has helped you be where you are?
I would say my perspectives on this has developed over the years. I think one of the things that I definitely think now is I'm definitely more of a quality person than a quantity person at this point. I think the reason that I say that is I think sometimes in our own day-to-day, it can be easy to say, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, I haven't posted anything yet today, or it's 7 o'clock, I haven't posted anything yet. But for the most part, nobody on the internet is looking, saying that when is Haley going to post something? When is Dan going to post something? It's not really how people look is when something's good, that's when it starts to notice a little bit. And what I've noticed over the years is, and this was definitely the case with the Golden Knights, is all the top 2 or 3 tweets a week would get more impressions than the remaining 100 combined. And it would be like that on a regular basis. So I used to say to myself, I started to tell myself, hey, what about these posts standing out from those posts? Oh, wait, this has this quality that those don't. Rather than me chasing every little thing that kind of I could possibly tweet about, let me scale back, knowing what really moves the needle is this, and do a little more of this, especially moving the needle also now, even with sponsored content, knowing that what are the things that actually deliver money and pay the bills here? Oh, well, that's this. Maybe let me not chase that other thing that isn't going to get engagement and is not going to drive money for us. That being said, I think it's when it comes to someone breaking into business, I think having a presence is really important. I think for me, the way I looked at it, and one of the things that even changed for me is that I've gone years like that year with the Lightning Admirals. I think I drove 8,000 miles in 2 months. I mean, it was kind of nuts. But as I kind of got a little bit older and I was freelancing right before I got hired by Vegas, I decided to try the other way. Say, I'm not going to chase every single thing, but I'm going to interview Sean Avery or Mike Keenan or people like that. And those also got way more eyeballs than all the other ones combined would do. So I think that is something to kind of keep in mind, that sometimes we all put that pressure on ourselves internally that we need to produce. But at the end of the day, the way I would say, 4 quarters don't equal a dollar. I would rather have one good thing than 4 mediocre things. They don't really add up the same way. I would say the other thing that's really important, especially if it's someone out there who's looking to for a job or to move up, is having a plan when it comes to building your own brand. And one of the things I do with that, I do it for myself, I've done it for companies, is I establish content buckets. And I know Jordan, you and I discussed this in the past too, is that instead of just saying, I'm going to go online and I'm just going to post whatever comes to my head, which in my case is a bunch of nonsense, is I'm going to try to say, well, what do I want to represent? So I want to show people that I know my industry, that I know my sport, and in some way that I stand out from other people in a way that's really safe and not offensive. So in my case, on my personal channels, I try to be very positive and point out other people's good work. I like to use random trivia from games in like 1918 because my antisocial high school life, I spent reading about hockey, and I'm going to use that information to my advantage now. And then in my case, I like dad jokes, so that's a way to show my personality in a way that's a little memorable, but it's kind of safe. I need to post in ways that sticks to a plan. You know, plans can change, but it's always easier to color within lines as opposed to just improvise and kind of make it up as you go. In my case, like when it comes to content, like I said, that could be me going to where The Sandlot was filmed and playing the soundtrack of the movie when I walk around and narrate it. I guess that's content, I guess, in a way, but it's not just saying, it's not more of a random thing. It's more, it's more something that's kind of the theme, kind of how I would do things. I don't think the way I do it is the way that everyone needs to do it. I think it's about finding what's unique to you and what's unique to someone else. And I think what that allows you to do, especially in 2020, the internet is a really negative, nasty place sometimes. And sometimes I like to say every day to people, are you part of the nastiness or are you part of the solution? And I think sometimes that it can be very easy when people care about things to sometimes get sucked into these arguments that nobody ever wins. And for me, at least by having a plan that way, it kind of keeps me out of those, that instead of engaging it online, maybe I'll talk to someone who lives with me and I'll say, man, you see what this novel has said? But it's better for me to say it there than it is to do it online. And it's all about that idea of establishing your brand, whether that is through the quality of content, whether that's through personality, whether it's through all of those things. Because I think, I will say this for sure, Twitter is it's the 21st century marketplace. What the marketplace was in the 18th century is what Twitter is now. You have, it's maybe for a more modern one, it's like the high school cafeteria. That might be a better one too. Is that it's good, it's bad, there's all sorts of things in there. But at the same time, I've gotten more jobs and professional opportunities from Twitter than I've gotten from job boards. So knowing that that's kind of out there, it really kind of puts into perspective. So sometimes you'll see people say, oh man, I'm deleting all these apps from my phone. I always say, like, take a deep breath. Maybe don't necessarily delete it altogether, but maybe don't look at it all the time, because especially in 2020, whatever this only getting you is, if they thought 2012 was going to be the end of the world, but really 2020 kind of is that if you're on your phone and you're looking at things all day, it'd be really easy to just get depressed and get really down because there's just so much negativity that way. I think it's kind of understanding that it's very important to be conscientious and aware, but also to take care of yourself too. So, in a way, like I said, it's all about having that plan and keeping yourself out of those things, which, is, hopefully 2021 is better than 2020, but it's really a way to kind of, think crossed, right? I mean, is like, as I like to say, we got a raw deal on this. When I was growing up, my favorite video game was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when they travel in time. 2020 was when they travel into the future. And it's like neon lights, they're on hover crabs flying through the streets. And I'm like, man, I'm sitting on the internet watching a bunch of people yell at each other. This is not what I signed up for. So, hopefully, eventually that will influence and maybe the world isn't so vicious and nasty sometimes, but especially when it is, I think it's a really smart way to navigate that, and just watch out for your own image, because a lot of times when it comes to the internet, think of people that you follow that you're like, man, I can't believe they said that crazy thing. I wouldn't want to live with them. Is that sometimes you say to yourself is, and I say this myself, what I'm going to say to you, this is not why someone would hire me for the job, but it is a reason somebody might not hire me for the job. And I think thinking of that kind of like, and the same way it's on a team to stick to a brand or a company to stick to a brand. I think individuals have brands too. Well, it's not about being serious, it's dad jokes. But it's just doing it in a way that's like, doing it with intention.
Of course. So that's everything we have for you. But as always, we always open the floor to our guests if you have any questions for us. So let us know. But other than that, that's all from us.
I'm trying to think if I got any questions. I'll give you a question here. Who's your pick to win the Stanley Cup this year?
I feel like for many reasons, I'm always cheering for Vegas. First of all, just because, not even just being like, oh, I love Vegas, but like truly, I'm a Blackhawks fan, and they literally were so good, and now we're so bad. So A, Vegas beat them. B, after I went to Vegas, like I was there in 2017 when everything was happening, I was just like, I followed them since then. I was like, the 6 months too, I've seen them grow. So that's usually my pick. I'm honestly like, not to be anti-Toronto, they didn't make it past one round anyway, but like even if Toronto was in the second round, I probably wouldn't cheer for them. But yeah, Vegas is usually my pick.
I said it would have been ironic if Toronto won this year after all these years and nobody could go.
Yeah, seriously.
That would have been the all-time. That would have been the all-time. Julian, how about you? I'll give you my little take on it after.
Oh, okay. I right now, this is how everything is. I'm going to say, oh God, so Vancouver, obviously, Canada, one Canadian team, please do something. And trying to think. No, I'm gonna go with Avalanche though, because I miss Kadri so much, and the Tyson Barrie trade still makes me upset. So yeah.
Colorado's a sick team to watch too. Like the other night, I was listening to the Tampa Boston game on the NHL app when I was driving in Connecticut, and I'm like, oh, let me just check that other score, and I'm like, what? 5-0. It was like 10 minutes into the game, but they have the ability to do that. In my case, is it's kind of funny. Right now, Tampa Bay is the betting favorite to win the Cup, and Vegas is second. And those are my two former teams. One of my the good luck shock of NHL Digital is that sometimes is that I don't know is I like there's lots of people individually that I want to see do well. Would love to see Vegas do well, but John Cooper and I go a little bit further back. It would be really interesting. I guess I'll stay diplomatic, but it would be really interesting to see a Tampa Vegas Stanley Cup final. Get me on the podcast. I can the differences between the two organizations, because I think I'm the only person that close to the two. I think.
That would be sweet. I would love to see that coverage.
I mean, think about how crazy that would be. I mean, and they played some really good games too. The first time they faced each other the first season, I think I was still with Vegas at that point. I think we won 4-3 or 5-4, and it was a back and forth game. The lead changed 3 times, and Shea Theodore scored the winner with a second and a half left in the third period. Is that Vegas and Tampa played a lot of good games. At that point, I think it would be a really entertaining style of hockey. That being said, if it was Colorado and Tampa too, or even Dallas for that matter, I mean, people think of Dallas as a defensive team. They've just been scoring like crazy. All I hear is Pantera coming out of my coming out of TV all the time. Is one way or another, I think it's gonna be really interesting, and especially considering a couple months ago we didn't even think this was gonna happen. And maybe with some skepticism of how good it was actually gonna be. I think the league's actually done a really good job. Sometimes I actually get fooled by the sound, thinking that there's people actually there. But no, maybe we'll see that Tampa Vegas Stanley Cup final. The Dan Marrazza final.
We love to see it. But thank you so much, Dan, for joining us. As always,
Absolutely.
time. And so go Vegas and Tampa Bay because we want to see that final. So thank you so much to Dan for joining us. If you want to follow him, his @ is @Dan Marrazza. I believe just @Dan Marrazza. Yes.
I believe so. Let me double check.
Yeah, I'm always so bad at this. Like last time, poor Tori. Her @ is @Tori Lynn with 1 N _M. And I literally apologized to her. I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so stupid. Like,
But yeah, no, it is Dan Marrazza. Yeah.
there we go. Got it right. Chef's kiss. So we're going to go through this pretty quickly just because there wasn't like too much happening other than like the poor Utah Jazz losing to the Denver Nuggets. Our guy Jamal Murray literally lighting it up for Canadian basketball, literally dropped like 40, 40, and 50 points in 3 consecutive games. Like, he's amazing. The Denver Nuggets have not been good since, like, I swear Carmelo Anthony played for them. I don't know if I'm making that up or not, but I swear to God, like, they have not been good since they wore the baby blue jerseys. But speaking of NBA, so everyone saw that adorable video of Fred VanVleet's daughter. Like, Jordan wants that framed.
Shania saved my life because oh my God, you were the cutest little thing. I was showing the videos to my mom beforehand of them doing like the video. She's like, Daddy's on TV. And then Fred VanVleet Jr.'s hitting a umbrella on the ground like this. I was showing her that like the day before they were in the bubble. And then, yeah. So cutest thing ever in the world.
Literally so sweet. And even like Giannis, I can literally never say his last name. Like on you know, the Greek freak. Like his wife, girlfriend, don't really care, his lady, and like their son was there, and Jimmy Butler made these comments with like, Jimmy Butler, shut up. Like, I love him as a player, but like, no one asked you.
I didn't know he was a father or really had a family. Like,
literally.
Also like 20.
Yeah, I know. I never know anyone's ages, but he was like, you know, personally, I wouldn't want to have my family in the bubble. And like, honestly, like, I can get where he's coming from, but in the same breath, you guys have been quarantined for 2 months now, literally have not seen the outside world. Your families aren't going to put you in a position to damage that. And also, they probably had to quarantine before they came in. Like, sorry, people want to see their kids. My apologies.
Like, thank you, Peanut Gallery.
Like, honestly, who asked you, Jimmy Butler? Who said Planned Parenthood new spokesperson, Jimmy Butler? Like, not me.
Yeah, but it's Wednesday. Calm down.
But it's true. It's just like, I don't know. If you don't want to put your family in that position, that's great. Don't bring them to the bubble. But don't criticize other people for wanting to see their children who are like this big also. Like, if it was my age, my parents would be like, yeah, I don't care about seeing you. Like, you're 23. Get out of my house. Like, I don't want to see you. But when your kids are that young, like, Fred Jr. is what, like a year old now?
Yeah, around
like,
8 months of the year now.
Yeah, like he literally, those are like the most crucial stages of his life. Obviously, his dad wants to see him, and basketball is his career. He has to provide for his family by playing basketball. He can't really just say like, no, we're not doing this. So, yeah, that's the end of my NBA rant. WNBA, so we all know we love the WNBA. Literally accidentally bought not 1, not 2, but 4 Diana Taurasi shirts today because I'm stupid. I don't know how that happened.
He said BOGO sale.
Literally said BOGO, and then the Phoenix Mercury said, no, you won't pay full price. Then I had to call my mom and be like, so when you see like a $230 charge on your credit card, I made a boo-boo. Like,
That wasn't me.
Truly. But Courtney Vander Sloot broke the WNBA assist record with 18 assists in 1 game, which that's like 36 points, which is usually like a third of the points. So a third of like the points scored, she made the assist on, which is insane. And obviously, whatever she scored doesn't count. You don't get your own assist. Like, it's either unassisted or whatever. Anyways, I saw a stat basically saying so she currently has the WNBA assist record for like the league, and it's like over 300 assists. If the WNBA was a full league, she would break her own record with how many assists it is, which is just insane for a man or a woman, and that's what people were saying. And in her post-game press conference that game, she wore a short a shirt that said, she wore a shirt that said put women's sports on TV. And I was like, this woman is my president. I love her so much. So that's that. That's it for basketball. We'll move on to baseball now.
Yeah, okay, so trade deadline happened. We're not even going to talk about it. I'm just telling you it happened because honestly, I'm making a pizza right now. So we're trying to just break it through before I eat that pizza. Clevengers, Padres, the place that Tony Hawk Level 4, Tony Hawk's Underground took place. That apparently there's no palm trees there. My bad for thinking that. It's just crackheads. That's what I was told forward. It's just crackheads. So honestly, okay. And then Toronto, we got Robbie Ray, Robbie Ray Stewart, Hamilton's dad. We got him because, our bullpen is literally just a whole giant injured reserve. Like, okay, Trent Thornton said bye. Nate Pearson said bye. Shoemaker said peace out town now. Like, whatever. So yeah, and then we had Walker already. Got him just before the deadlines, I believe. Yeah, just up before. So yeah. That's that. And then last night, Yankees versus Rays. Yanks won 5-3, I believe. Yeah, 5-3 Yanks. And then a little situation happened. So I had to catch up on it because I did not get to see any baseball last night. Where I am, there's no game, like there's no sports on TV here, so it kind of sucks. But yeah, so Chapman. So it's bottom of the ninth, was it? Top of the ninth, bottom of the ninth. I don't know. It was the ninth inning. Let's go with that. It was the top, and I just realized that. Anyways, threw a 99 mile per hour. Some people said it was 101, but yeah, 99 mile per hour fastball at Barrazo's head. Yeah, if he literally didn't do this, just that move saved his life. Like doing the Thriller dance literally saved man's life. Okay, so that happened. Marrazza goes, like, he ends up striking out. He walks back. He keeps kind of looking at, like, the mound at Chapman. Chapman's known to be a wild pitcher also. Do I think it was intentional? No, but, like, if this is a history thing, maybe fix it and learn your control and where placement.
Exactly.
I don't know. But, anywho, the whole brawl happens. Barraza didn't say anything going back to the dugout, but he heard someone on the Yankees say it. I don't know who it was that said it. So, yeah, anyways. And then Kevin Cash comes out saying, like, you're like, because earlier that game someone else got hit. Tanaka hit or basically hit another player. I totally forget who it was now, but hit him. That was supposed to be like a message thing, but then they got the message across, was what Cash was saying once Chapman almost hit Barraza in the head. So yeah, suspensions were handed out. Chapman got 3 games, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 less than Joe Kelly. So apparently that gets you 5 games. And then Cash got 1 for his comments because he basically was saying, I have a whole bullpen that can throw 98 at your players' heads. So people were like, this is a threat. And it's just like, I don't know if it was really a threat, but like
self-defense, really.
Yeah, like I don't think he wasn't gonna go pull a Tanya Harding on your team. Like, calm down. Like, he wasn't going to do that. And then Aaron Boone got 1 game, so which is 1, 2, 3, 1 more than the Astros ever did for cheating a World Series. So I don't know. Rob Manfred's just literally tossing and flipping coins on what kind of suspensions people get.
Truly, like anyone else, so you literally breathe on MLB, he's like suspended. Astros, he chooses to be Jared, 19. Like, I don't understand. There's no consistency, and it's like these aren't things in a rule book that it's like if you do this you get 1 suspension, if you do this you get 3 game suspension. Rob Manfred literally is probably like sitting on his toilet in the morning and like gets an email and he's like 8. Great, like.
Oh my God, do you remember was it on Webkins? Sorry, okay, this is not me going on a random rant, but like Webkins, didn't they have like a little thing that you could hit, like the spinning wheel of fortune? That's literally, yeah, the wheel of wow. I love RuPaul's Drag Race, but no, so I love World of Wonder, but no, you would spin and it would be like what suspension, like that's what I'm thinking Manfred does.
Like that's what he does. Like he wakes up in the morning, he's got this little roulette table. It's like, all right, suspension for Chapman, 14 black, let's go. Like
he's appealing is the word I want to use right now because I can't think of anything besides the smell of the pizza beside me. But basically, yeah, he's gonna appeal it. I'm pretty sure. It came out now, but it's just absolute effery, love. So yeah.
Well, it's mental illness, isn't it? Yeah, no, that is bizarre that there's literally no consistency there. But to finish off, we've got two more things. First one, it's kind of just like saying the news and just like kind of reminds me of when we were in class and we had to do those debates. And mine was like, are soccer players overpaid? Yes, they are, but I had to argue that they aren't. But Messi just signed a 5-year deal for 700 million euros. Euros. That's not dollars. Dollars are more. Like that's, I don't know the conversion, closer to like 800, 900 million dollars. He signed with a group that Man City owns, so I'm assuming yes, he's going to Man City. I found the math is that he basically gets paid about 16 million euros an hour, or not 16 million, 16,000 euros per hour.
But like, what do you do with that money?
I don't know. It's insane. But think he earns 615 euros per day. That is more. That is like 5 times more than some people make a year, and he earns that per day.
But what do you?
It's because he's the best.
I just want an Apple Watch. Like, do you want to buy me one?
Messi sponsor. No, it's true, and it's like yes, he's one of the best players in the world. Probably like put him up there. I don't know, Neymar, Ronaldo. Like yeah, he's worth some money, but that is just like an insane amount. Like I remember there was a tweet that just came up the other day that it was like the 10 or 9-year anniversary or something of when Real Madrid paid 100 million pounds, not euros, for Gareth Bale. And that was like the most expensive thing in history. Same with a few years back when Neymar went to PSG. They had to pay 300 million euro transfer fee or something like that. And it was like insanity. 700 million euros, that's like quite literally close to $1 billion.
I hope you know that once a number goes past $100,000 to me, I just don't even.
It's just
like,
too much.
how much? Yeah, like
True.
that's my limit.
Yeah, no, it's just bizarre. Like, there's not much to say because really, like, I don't know. I don't work in soccer. I'm sure they make the money, and that was my argument when we were doing it in class. It's like the industry has to obviously generate that much money to be able to pay the players. People aren't paying out of pocket to have Messi. Like, soccer is the most watched sport in the world, most played sport, not most watched, most played. I'm sure it's most watched too. Those are the 1,000 leagues. And obviously with Champions League and everything like that, you're playing like 3 to 4 times as many games as you would in any other sport. But just, that's an insane amount of money. If he's a flop, I will laugh because you literally just paid 700 million euros for a flop. But last thing that came up, and I didn't get to read too much into this, but it just made me laugh because it's here Toronto, local. So I guess Hotel X, who is one of the NHL bubbles, I guess they're being sued right now because they had this catering staff and they fired them all when the bubble started. And apparently the new catering company, their owner is a part owner of the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Pittsburgh Penguins. So T out of the bubble.
Yeah, so the original caterer, I think his name is Kevin, something with a K. And he, sorry, that's such a, anyways, he was with Hotel X that opened in 2018. So literally brand spanking new. And he was with them since the big open. And then he was really excited about the bubble because like, I can work again. Like, hell yeah. And then he got told like, nah, like you're out. Peace out, A-Town now. Like they literally booted him. And then yeah, Harlow Entertainment is the company that they brought in, was the catering company they brought in, and they have minority stakes in the Pittsburgh Penguins, which I don't understand.
That's just like a conflict of interest, if anything, really. Like,
yeah,
all the caterers in the world, you have one that just so happens to be a minority owner of a team that is or was in the bubble. Like,
honestly, like when I thought like about the NHL bubble and like kind of like what like drama or like discrepancies were gonna happen, I thought maybe like Ovechkin was gonna go fight someone, Marchand was gonna lick someone in the lobby, but I didn't think it was gonna be about a catering company.
Literally, even like, you know, when the NBA bubble first started, the girl was like, I got invited to the bubble. I totally thought like somebody was gonna invite some girl to the bubble and like ruin everything. No, literally about catering.
Like,
I mean,
the BLT.
Like, I get it, a job's a job, and obviously being booted out in favor of somebody who's like part of the hockey community is like absolute bullocks. But is the pizza okay?
The pizza fell. 1 second.
Oh my goodness. I'm just gonna rant on my own for 2 seconds. But yeah, I just think it's, it's a conflict of interest, if anything. If you thought somebody wasn't doing a good job or whatever, is your pizza okay?
I thought there was pizza the whole time. It's been chicken wings sitting in there.
Not having pizza for dinner?
I don't know. My mom just said put this in the oven, and I didn't look.
Madame. But yeah, it's just out of all the catering companies in the world you could have picked, you're picking one. There's clearly some sort of agreement there. Like they probably are getting like a prorated deal or something like that because the Penguins are staying there, so they're like, we'll bring our company, whatever. It has nothing to do with sports, but in the same breath, it does because it has to do with the NHL bubble.
Like, honestly, you should have just hired Rico and Jackson's beef jerky truck. Whatever was it, Jackson and Rico? I don't know.
Yeah, cheese jerky. Say what? Say what?
And it's all freaking fresh.
Love to see it. That's where we end. As soon as we start getting into that mentality of no brain cells left, she's done. But thanks for joining us, y'all. We appreciate you all more than you know, and we will see you next week.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Ah.